baby, how was school today?
Mom, these kids at school kept making fun of me and they kept calling my hair nappy. Why, Mom?
Tootie, look, just read this book and it'll tell you everything you need to know.
There's another N-word we throw around in and out of the black community called nappy. We have taken that word like the other N-word, nigger, and made it a word of adornment. I have heard the word nappy my entire life, which was used to insult, degrade, and hurt someone. This word is a derogatory term that was used in our ancestors to insult people.
Available now.
I love myself.
Same tree, different brand.
I hope you love yourself, because love is only love when you love somebody else.
What hair looks like after slavery. Transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade by the European changes everything for Central and West Africans. Let's briefly talk about the transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese and later the English, the French, and the Dutch got involved in enslaving Africans in large parts of West Africa, the Gulf Coast of Guyana, and the Congo River Basin, were significant areas of human exports to the Americas, mostly to sugar plantations in the Caribbean. By the late 17th century, the so-called triangle trade developed. European ships loaded with guns, textiles, tobacco, and manufacturing goods sailed to Africa slave ports and traded those goods for captives. European slave traders then took those Africans to the New World where they were sold. With that money, the European purchased staples such as sugar, tobacco, rum, and coffee, then sold for enormous profits back in Europe. The profits was often reinvested in other goods to be traded for captives back in Africa and so on. If you want more in-depth information on the transatlantic slave trade, I recommend you read Hugh Thomas' book titled The Slave Trade, the story of the Atlantic slave trade 1440 through 1870. This is a thick book, roughly 912 pages, and worth sacrificing some of your time to read. The book is almost the same price as a supersized combo from a fast food restaurant, destroying the image of African hair. Europeans who had traded and communicated with Africans knew the complexity and the significance of black hair. They were often struck by the various hairstyles that they saw within each community. In an effort to dehumanize and break the African spirit, Europeans shaved the heads of enslaved Africans upon arrival to the Americas. This was not merely a random act, but a symbolic removal of African culture. The shaving of the hair represents the removal of any trace of African identity and further acts to dehumanize.
Good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? Alafia, Jama, and Boca. It's your boy Sean P. in the place to be. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend. We're live. Got me a little pimple on my face because I ain't getting none. Nah, man. I hope y'all are having a beautiful day. Please like the show, share the show. I'm gonna get straight to it. So I was on Not a Coincidence's show the other day, and it was a late show. And he had these two brothers, but I think only one of the brothers is from South Carolina. The other one just talked way too much, and both of them were in denial. I don't care if there's too much information. It's a fucking fact. Don't mess up my show, okay? I'm going somewhere. But anyway, the brother was on there, and it was the first time I ever heard someone from South Carolina spew the type of rhetoric that was being spewed. And you know what I mean? And I wanted to take this time out to just kind of go through some of this, document it, and move forward. But of course, I always have useful information within the description of the video that tells another story, a side of the story that he must be unfamiliar with. and that whoever else that he dealing with is unfamiliar with as well. Yeah, when I get ready, mind your business. So let's get straight to it, man. Please, again, like the show, share the show, tell a friend, we live. And let's get down to the get down. All right, so I'm going to let this play just a little bit. I'm off a little bit, but the brother's going to come in and he's going to, I need to let him be very clear on his position that he takes. So I told two friends. So let's see what happens. Okay. I see what you're saying. All right.
I'll even fall back. One of y'all just set up your. Why don't y'all just go back and forth, two of y'all? I don't even want to do it. I just want to hear two of y'all go so we won't be cussing each other out. That's all.
The Gaston dude. Let me talk to the Gaston dude.
They got like auction.
The Gaston dude that's from Charleston also. Mr. Gaskin, do you subscribe to the so-called black slavery thing here in Charleston?
What's your alternate theory?
They said most of the slaves at a certain time was coming through Gadsden's Wharf. It was two places in Charleston. It's Charleston and another port where a lot of slaves at one time during this certain time period, like in the 1700s, they would come.
Let's not call them. Let's not call them slaves. Let's call them kidnapped victims.
All right, cool.
But we can pull up Gadsden. I want to pull up Gadsden's Wharf for him because he's down there, right?
What? Yeah, but that don't even matter, bro. He said it didn't happen the way that they said. So what matters is hold on. I just need y'all to pay attention. He said that it didn't happen the way they said. Fuck all the other stuff. That's evidence that we have that they don't. They have to show now. They have to show and prove that it did not happen. And where did they get the evidence to say that the slave trade did not happen the way that it was told? So tell us how it happened.
I
went to the custom house.
One second, I need 30 seconds, brother. Can Real Rap or the other brother that agreed with us get a one-on-one and Sean and go with their information without everybody butting in?
Hold on, bro. All you could do is just answer his question, my dude. Like, it's good the way it's going now. No, all you gotta do is answer his question.
Real, you talk too damn much.
Sean, can you ask the question again?
Nah, y'all scared to get some decorum in here.
Let me know when they ready.
Yo, Real Word, stop. Yo, Real Word, stop. Bro.
How can you ask 5 people 10 different questions?
That's sad, bro. Hey,
let me answer the one question. Hey, bro, are you going to share our screens? If we got video evidence and first-hand accounts from Africans, can we play that? Because we got all types of evidence, bro.
Word, I agree with that too, man. If y'all ask a question, then let us everybody
what does
get
it
a
have
chance
to do with the transatlantic slave trade?
Everything,
bro. So hold on,
ask the question. Let each one ask the question. That's it.
I ain't even asked. I haven't asked. I'm waiting on y'all to be. I'm waiting on y'all to listen to the question.
Sassy, I don't need you to answer the question again.
Yo, hold on. All right, break it up. Real quick, y'all. Darvin said he's from Charleston, so hold on, stop. All right, he about to ask it in 2 seconds.
I don't need it.
Bro, all right, you can answer it in 2 seconds. Stop, man. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, damn.
No,
man,
you know how to get control of your channel.
All right, this is how I get control. Get the fuck out of here. So he said he's from Charleston. This is from the Charleston Daily Courier, Charleston, South Carolina, right? February 8th, 1806. And here we have a list of, right? It says Gold Coast Negroes to sale, right? Prime Mandingos. They tell you the ship. and all the other shit. Africans, the choice of cargo Africans just arrived in the snow carry from the Gold Coast in perfect health and have all had the smallpox, right? Prime Congo and Gullah Negroes, right? So, yeah.
So you tell me the Gullah Negroes on a ship?
Ain't that what it say, right?
Yes, sir.
I know, but think about it. You saying the Gullah Negroes is on a ship coming from Charleston. The Gullah Coast started from
1806, bro.
Cool, I got you, King. But the Gullah Coast starts from North Carolina.
Hold on, look.
It goes all the way down to Florida.
All right, Prime Congo and Gullah Negroes. The sale of the cargo of the ship America, consisting of 418 prime young Negroes, will commence this day, the 27th instant, at the Oily Wharf. Produce will be taken in payment at the market price for terms to apply. James Broadfoot. Why would they have these ads if it's not true? Like,
yo, that's interesting with that Gullah. When you go back up to that Gullah, they're saying they're bringing they're bringing people already called Gullah in.
Yeah,
hold
where
on.
they coming from if this the Gullah Coast?
Yeah, hold on. Let me show y'all something. See, for some reason
that's not interesting if you knew.
It's not. If you knew, that's nothing new.
No, these are prisoners of war.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we had wars against each other. We were fighting each other. That's it, King.
That's correct, but that's why they got put into slavery on that coast. But the intent of those who actually was performing the slavery, the white man, it was for slavery. But he took advantage.
Exactly,
of the
but
fact
those
that we had
POWs were not slaves, though.
Africa.
Look, this is 1807, a runaway, right? $5 reward, absent herself from her owner on the 17th instant, an African girl of the Gullah Nation named Mary, about 15 years of age, 4 feet 9, 10 inches.
They were enslaved in America.
Yes, but they were not the slaves, though.
Hold on.
These are POWs.
Hold on. Before anyone, hold on, brother.
My bad. Can't go do your thing. My bad.
No. I'm trying to meet you where you are. I'm not trying to get lost. So what I'm saying is, what I need to know is, what are you saying? Are you saying that the people that came from Africa, right, that were POWs, or are you saying that the people that got to America, or the people that was in America that was enslaved? What are you saying? So that there's no confusion.
Cool. Now, what I'm saying is there were wars going on between the Yemasees here and these different sets.
No. Slow down. That's why I was trying to cut you, because he's showing you ads where they are transporting POWs from Africa, right? And they are being brought to the Americas,
and the Yemasees ain't
and
black
they
either.
are being enslaved in America.
Cool. What I'm saying is this, King. First of all, them people did not come from Africa. They're a product of wars.
So no. Hold on. No. As soon as you say they did not, hold on, brother.
Go ahead.
You said they did not come from. That's why we gotta walk slow. We can't run because you talking too fast. You talking
my
too
bad.
fast.
I got you.
That's that Gullah accent, man.
So
that's all it is.
No. That's no problem. That's not a problem for me because I didn't talk to. What I'm saying is the audience. We have an audience that's listening, and you said that the people that were enslaved did not come from Africa. He is showing. I'm gonna repeat it. He is showing you ads, slave ads, where they advertised shipments of Africans coming to the Americas for sale. You said that did not happen, or those people were not African. How could you say that?
Because they're Gullah, so-called Gullah. This is the Gullah Coast.
But hold on, slow down.
And there was a place here once. There was a place here, King, that people get confused with the term Africa. We went to war with each other,
brother.
And the POWs.
Listen to me. I don't want you to sound crazy.
Right.
The ads are ads that they are running in the newspaper that are telling you, listen again, that they are coming. My bad. Coming off a ship. 418 Africans from the Gold Coast is coming off a ship into the Americas. They are from the Congo and the Gullah area in Africa. And they are getting dropped off on the 27th. And you're telling me that these people that are arriving to the Americas off a ship aren't arriving off a ship. They were already here and they confusing shit.
Cool. I got you. Now, if this happened, that means you can go to Charleston and go to the custom house and look at the archives and you can cross-reference what happened there to the documents they got at the custom house. If you go to the custom house and look at the archives, King, you realize something. Those
he has a
people
primary
were
source on the screen.
Black. No, you got a newspaper article on the screen.
No. That's a primary source.
That's a primary source.
No.
It's written at the time of the
article.
incident. It's
you got
written
a
at the
newspaper
time.
article.
It's written at the time. Look at the dates, brother. It says January 22nd in the top left-hand corner, and it's telling you that the people gonna arrive on the 27th. That's a primary source. You cannot negate anything. So you would have to refute the primary source. You would have to refute all of this, and you can't. It's a primary.
Cool. You finished?
Oh, look, no, hold on, real quick. So a lot of people don't understand this, right? This from University of Massachusetts, Boston, right? Haley Library, right? Primary source. For some reason, they think newspapers and things like that aren't. I don't know why. The primary source are immediate, first-hand accounts of the topic from people who had a direct connection with the primary sources. Can include texts of law and other original documents, newspaper reports by reporters who witnessed an event or who quote people who did, speeches, diaries, letters, and interviews. What the people involved said or wrote, original search, data, survey data, such as a census or economic statistics, photograph, video, or audio that capture an event. Right?
So they say. I got you.
No, it's not so they say, bro. There's actually rules.
King, I'm from Charleston, King.
No, I know plenty of people from Charleston. I know plenty of people from Charleston, and they never claim to be an Aboriginal. They all know their African heritage and their African roots. So for you to sit here and say, brother, you just became an Abo in 2017. No, I'm not letting you get away from the fact that a primary you can't negate.
Y'all are damn near Caribbean people, be
brother. Did you graduate high school? Did you graduate high school?
Listen, King, I'm from here.
No, did you graduate from? I know people from Charleston, brother.
I'm from here. Okay,
that
so
don't
which
mean
one of
nothing.
people you know from Charleston?
Did you graduate from high school? Did you graduate from high school?
In America,
nope.
Sean.
I mean, you can't negate.
I know you.
No, I didn't.
But so why the fuck am I finna listen to you and you didn't graduate from high school? You don't even have a basic comprehension.
You basically graduated from high school.
All right, so y'all heard it for yourselves. And those of you who came in late, you heard him arguing that the black people that are in South Carolina were not a part of no slave trade or no slave narrative. They were a part of a war that took place between some Indians, the Yamasee tribe, and another tribe. They were not Africans. They were POWs, and they were enslaved because of a war. Not because of Eurocentric ideology and the fact that they went to Africa and brought them back. So he also denies other things. Let it play just a little bit more.
Correct.
You just said you did not graduate from high school. Correct. You just said you did not graduate from high school. Your mother never told you that you never came from Africa. You don't even know what a primary source is.
No, King. I'm from Charleston. Everybody in Charleston. No, you're not listening. You're not listening. No, let me talk about this. I heard you, Mr. King.
Bro, I know people from Charleston.
Cool.
They don't talk like you, bro. They don't.
I fell back and listened to you. Listen to me for a second. I did for 1 second, right?
No, you trying to negate no. Do you understand? I need to understand if you accept a primary source as evidence.
I do accept the primary source. What I'm saying is that's a newspaper article.
So why did you say that these people were not? So hold on. Hold on. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna let you talk, but I'm not gonna let you run amok. What I'm saying is a primary source is on the screen. and you're trying to negate it off.
No, but I'm saying that's not a primary source of the screen. Is what I'm saying, gang.
How is
Because
it
the
not?
newspaper article.
Hold on.
Because
How
the
is it
newspaper
not? How
article,
is it
gang.
not? How is it
Because
not?
of the newspaper article.
How
So
is it
what is
not?
the
Anybody can put
primary
something in the
source to
newspaper,
you?
gang.
How
Gang,
is it
listen,
not?
you could, listen, I'm gonna tell you why.
I told
Because you
you.
can write the newspaper right now. You can write an article and send it to the newspaper.
No,
and they'll
you
print it.
can't.
Yes,
No, you
yes,
can't
you
because it
can.
has a
Yes, you
publishing date.
can.
It has a
I know, but that
publishing
doesn't mean
date.
that's a date. That's
Yes,
just the
it
date.
does. It has
No,
a
it doesn't,
publishing
gang.
date. Brother,
Gang,
it
listen.
has a goddamn publishing date.
Just because it got a publishing date don't mean it real, gang.
No,
No, stop
You
that.
don't
What is
know.
the primary source to you then? What's the primary
God
source to you then?
damn.
If the newspaper
The
article
people
from that
that's
time
there,
is
that would be a primary source.
what?
Actually, people of the area will be a primary source.
But
These
That's not primary source. The
congressional
generations
records.
past.
Most of the congressional records will be a primary source. All right.
Nah, that's written
Archaeological
like the
reports
newspaper.
will be
That's
a
written like the
primary
newspaper.
source. But a newspaper can't.
Is the Constitution a primary source?
There was a lady in a newspaper the other day.
Do you believe in genetics?
None of that. No, he don't. He don't.
Listen,
He didn't graduate high school, so he doesn't know.
About that
Let me explain.
Charleston thing,
Nobody.
All right. So again, y'all heard him very clearly. The newspaper article that was shown on the screen was not a primary source, although not a coincidence. Defined what a primary source is, and the newspaper was actually included in it. He says that the people are a primary source. So how many of people in 2023 was back in the 16th century when people was getting kidnapped and brought over here, 17th or 18th century for that matter? How many people was living back then? Or who are the people that he is referring to? Because he continues this argument for another 4 hours. We can't make this up. He does this for another 4 hours. And then the conversation goes into a whole nother lane. And then the brother that starts talking like he's weird as hell, he begins to say anything. So again, ayah, sour righteousness, ayah, is giving you the definition of a primary source, secondary source regarding newspapers. This newspaper clipping that was actually shown, okay, is a primary source. I want to put it back on the screen for everybody to see. Okay. This newspaper clipping that is shown right here is a primary source. This is a primary source. This isn't the only one, he's showing more, but this is a primary source. This is a primary source. He denied that. This source was published in the Charleston Daily Courier, January 22nd. I forget the year, but it was published in the dang on Charleston Daily Courier, the local damn newspaper. So let's look up the Charleston Daily Courier, and then we're going to get into the bill. All right. So y'all see my screen right here. Look at the Charleston Daily Courier. Its existence from 1803 to 1873. Okay. This is the Daily Courier. It's writing within the time frame. It's providing documentative evidence. Now, there's other newspaper clippings that can go on and on and on. And on and on and on to the break of dawn. But according to that brother's logic, none of this would be a primary. Like this obituary talking about somebody died, that ain't even a primary. That person didn't die, they lied, according to one's logic. But this is what we're dealing with. Okay? Now, let me take you on, let me get to the root of what I want to build on. So, I want to start here with the nearly 1,000 cargoes. Think about that. 1,000 cargoes. Okay? The legacy of importing Africans into Charleston, which he denies and says it did not happen. So what I'm going to do is we're going to listen to this Charleston Time Machine. In episode 85, they talk about this. Let me see if y'all can hear this.
Welcome to the Charleston Time Machine. I'm Nick Butler, historian at the Charleston County Public Library. Between 1670 and 1808, nearly 1,000 cargoes of enslaved Africans entered the port of Charleston. This fact represents one of the most important chapters in the history of our community, but we, the people of 21st century Charleston, still struggle to wrap our collective brains around this weighty topic. How can we tell this important story to our children and to the millions of tourists who come here each year? Today, I'd like to share with you an outline of my own efforts to corral some obscure facts into an illuminating story. Working as a public historian in Charleston over nearly 2 decades, I've fielded a lot of questions from locals and visitors about the history of Sullivan's Island, especially concerning its pest houses and the island's role in the transatlantic slave trade of the 18th century. More recently, I've also heard a lot of questions about the history of Gadsden's Wharf, the site of the new International African American Museum, and the historic role that ground played in the landing of African captives. At first, I had very little information under my cap about these topics to offer to local audiences. I was aware of a certain amount of scholarship relating to their respective histories, but I had never made a concerted effort to locate new data that might enhance the existing conversation. Nevertheless, as a regular part of my job and for recreation, I routinely spend a lot of time in local archives reading primary source materials, especially the public records produced during what we might call South Carolina's long 18th century, that is, from the reorganization of our General Assembly in 1692 to the beginning of the War of 1812. In the course of this ongoing systematic research, trolling primarily for information related to topics such as fortifications and militia activities, I began making notes about other interesting stories and topics that I encountered along the way. For example, the governor interrogating Spanish prisoners of war, or legislative debates about the pirates of the Bahamas, and a host of other matters that provide valuable details to help us reimagine Charleston's early history. Among the interesting sidelines that caught my attention were references to quarantine practices, which frequently, but not always, included Sullivan's Island and its successive pest houses, as well as occasional doctors' reports about shiploads of newly arrived immigrants and enslaved Africans. I made notes about such references and continued my journey of archival exploration, thinking that one day I might have a sufficient quantity of data to fill an interesting lecture or two. As my archival tour progressed and my body of notes grew larger, however, I realized that some of the data I had gathered did not quite match the historical narrative that I had heard about topics such as Sullivan's Island. Here began a professional conundrum, whether to keep this divergent data to myself or to offer it to the public and rock the boat. Over the past few years, I've presented a number of public lectures, both here at CCPL and elsewhere in the community, in which I've tried to summarize and narrate the historical data I've collected about Sullivan's Island, its successive pest houses, Gadsden's Wharf, and related topics. Although my findings differ slightly from the popular narrative published and espoused by other historians, the feedback I've heard from audiences has been generally positive and supportive. These are topics about which a lot of people clearly have a significant interest. But I did not enter into this field with a particular agenda or goal. Rather, I had simply collected some historical data and wanted to share it with anyone interested in the topic. Having done so on several occasions, I began hearing questions about when I was planning to publish my findings. To be honest, I never imagined that this work would develop into something publishable, and I already have far too many publishing projects in the queue. Nevertheless, the idea started to grow on me, and I began thinking about drafting an article about Sullivan's Island and its pest houses. In the course of the past year, I've been struggling to construct a summary of my research. Rather than simply narrating the data in chronological sequence and calling it done, I feel compelled to position this information in a robust historical context in order to facilitate its accessibility to a wider audience. My efforts to construct this contextual frame have been frustrated, however, by the gnawing feeling that I was missing something important. After months of head scratching, I believe I've found a solution to my own methodological conundrum. This is not simply a matter of calculating how many people landed on which island or wharf. Places such as Sullivan's Island and Gadsden's Wharf represent parts of a larger local system of protocols and logistics that, in turn, formed the final links in a much longer chain of transatlantic commerce. This project is going to require more of my time than I ever expected, but I'm convinced that it's an important endeavor that merits serious attention. In the following paragraphs, I'd like to share with you a preview and outline of this project as I currently conceive it. Although the legal importation of enslaved people ended more than 2 centuries ago, Charleston's historic role in this business represents a burdensome legacy that weighs heavily on the local conscience and influences our stewardship of the historic landscape. For a variety of reasons, some members of this community are compelled to advocate for a more robust understanding of the experiences endured by the African captives who once disembarked in Charleston, and to provide an accurate interpretation of that story to the millions of visitors who travel to this area each year. To do justice to this important legacy, such efforts must begin with a foundation composed of empirical, verifiable data. The documentary evidence related to Charleston's role in the transatlantic slave trade is plentiful but incomplete, and it's scattered among disparate archives. The work of collecting the necessary evidence is an ongoing endeavor undertaken by a number of individuals, agencies, and institutions, both locally and abroad. To understand the significance of the local picture, we have to first back up to see the larger scene and position Charleston within the landscape of an international trade network. Thanks to the work of numerous scholars in the course of the last century, historians now have a good understanding of the enormous scale of the business of transporting African captives to the New World over a span of more than 350 years. The paper trail of that terrible trade, which commenced in the early 1500s and continued into the 1860s, survives in documents found in a number of archives scattered around the globe in places like London, Liverpool, Sierra Leone, Lisbon, and Rio de Janeiro. Based on figures drawn from careful studies of this documentary record, the scholarly community now accepts that more than 10 million of the approximately 12 million people forcibly removed from Africa survived the horrific Middle Passage across the Atlantic Ocean and landed at a number of destinations in the New World. The majority of these slave cargoes sailed to ports in South America and in the Caribbean Sea, but approximately 400,000 African captives came to various ports on the mainland of North America. Of that total, we know that approximately 150 to 200,000 Africans passed through the port of Charleston in nearly 1,000 separate cargoes between the founding of the Carolina colony in 1670 and the legal prohibition of the transatlantic slave trade enacted by the United States Congress in 1808. These numbers demonstrate that Charleston received a greater share of the transatlantic slave trade than any other port in mainland North America, approximately 40% of all the African captives brought to this continent, and clearly established this port as a site of great importance in the broad historical narrative of the African American experience. The investigative work of compiling the evidence necessary to construct this broad profile of the transatlantic slave trade has involved many people working over the last century in a variety of archives around the globe. The well-respected website slavevoyages.org, for example, represents the work of international researchers striving to document the movement of thousands of ships and millions of people involved in the transatlantic slave trade between the years 1514 and 1866. Similarly, a number of historians have focused specifically on the North American scene, studying the individuals and institutions in colonial America and later in the United States that financed, insured, and defended this traffic in human cargo between 1619 and 1808. Closer to home, documentary resources housed in South Carolina archives provide valuable insight related to the entry of slave ships into Charleston Harbor, the sale of their African cargoes, and the lives of the enslaved people whose labors and cultures played such a large role in building this community and this nation. Because of the nature of the surviving document.
Real quick. I had to pause this because I don't know why, but I looked in the chat and Never Hungry Again is saying, where's the sources? So let me show you how to read a goddamn article. This is a source. You see this? It's highlighted blue. It's a different color from the regular print. This is a source. So here's one of the sources. This is a source. This is referencing what he said up there. Then he provides his summary of his research that goes further. Then he goes on and gives you another source right here. This is a source. Then he goes on and give you another source. This is a source. When you're saying that he's not giving sources, he is. But he's also got primary sources here that you can click on. Primary source that you can click on. Now, I understand, bro, you ain't been with us long, so you don't know how, like, you might not be used to how some of this stuff go. But another source, the map, the source from earlier, another source. All the way down to here, he gives you the two sources that he refers back to, and these sources that he has highlighted in blue, you can click on them and they're going to take you to a source. All right, so we left off right here. I'm gonna try to get it back.
The body of scholarship surrounding the history of the transatlantic slave trade is generally broad and impersonal. Historians have made good use of the extant evidence, which consists mostly of business records, to reconstruct the economic and political networks that facilitated the slave trade. But this material, by its very nature, includes very few local or personal details. This observation is not intended as a judgment on the existing scholarship. It's simply a statement of fact. But herein lies the problem. As a public historian talking with individuals and audiences around this community, I frequently encounter people who want to learn specific local details about the experiences of Africans who arrived in Charleston Harbor. Where did they land? How were they treated? Where were they sold? Unfortunately, there are no surviving narratives written by survivors of the passage from Africa to Charleston, and precious few records that even come close to helping us understand the experience from their subjective viewpoint. Our ability to reimagine the horrors of that journey is permanently abridged by the paucity of surviving documents. Thanks to the disappearance and destruction of other important historical records, we will never be able to reconstruct the details pertaining to the arrival, debarkation, and sale of slave cargoes in Charleston Harbor with a high degree of precision. At best, we might be able to construct an outline of the general experiences common to all of the nearly 1,000 cargoes of African captives that entered Charleston Harbor between 1670 and 1808. But where does such work begin? To date, historians and other writers addressing the 18th century traffic in African captives into the port of Charleston have focused much of their attention on Sullivan's Island, a coastal barrier island situated at the northeast edge of the harbor. Frequently described as the first point of landing for most of the Africans brought to this port, Sullivan's Island emerged as an important theme in African American history after 1974, when the eminent historian Peter Wood suggested that, quote, it might well be described as the Ellis Island of Black Americans, end quote. Over the past half century, the story of incoming African captives landing on Sullivan's Island has evolved from an obscure footnote on the periphery of colonial American history to a familiar part of mainstream conversations about the history of South Carolina and of the African American experience in general. Visitors to present-day Charleston often hear that some, most, or even all of the African captives brought here were first landed at Sullivan's Island, where they performed a temporary quarantine at a site called a pest house before being taken to the wharves of Charleston for sale. Variations on this story abound in published literature, websites, documentary films, bronze markers, and ephemeral speeches about Charleston and its historical involvement with the transatlantic slave trade. The wording of some versions of this story is conservative, such as a printed bulletin provided by the National Park Service at Fort Moultrie that states, quote, a portion of these captives served quarantine, but how many Middle Passage survivors set foot on Sullivan's Island is unknown, end quote. Other claims are quite bold, such as the text of the plaque installed on the island by the Toni Morrison Society in 2008, which asserts that, quote, nearly half of African Americans have ancestors who passed through Sullivan's Island, end quote. As a result of such publicity, Sullivan's Island has become the site of commemorations and a place of pilgrimage for people, black and white, local and foreign, who wish to meditate on the fate of the men, women, and children who either survived or died during the horrific Middle Passage.
Real quick, this is key here, okay? This is key here. Now, we can go and qualify this quote right here. It says the Toni Morrison Society in 2008, which asserts that nearly half of African Americans have ancestors who passed through Sullivan's Island. Khalil, I think your email just came through. No, that ain't you. Half. So if there's 45 million American or black people in America, 45 million, whatever that number is, right? 45 million. 22.5 million African Americans have ancestors who passed through Sullivan's Island. Man, let me make sure you sent it to the right one, bro. I ain't got nothing from you yet. But that is significant. Okay. So we're about to pick up right here, similarly the site of Gaston's Wharf. Okay.
Between Africa and the port of Charleston. Similarly, the site of Gadsden's Wharf on the Cooper River in downtown Charleston has received a great deal of attention in recent years. The long proposed International African American Museum, now on the verge of breaking ground, will soon rise above a spot of waterfront turf where tens of thousands of disembarking African captives commence their American lives. The historical significance of that site on Gadsden's Wharf is beyond question, but confusion persists over the number of Africans landed there. We might never be able to determine the precise number, but with the help of data extracted from a broader range of historical resources, we can close the gap and arrive at a well-reasoned estimate. Like Sullivan's Island, Gadsden's Wharf is poised to become a site of pilgrimage and reflection. As the residents of the larger Charleston community seek to improve and expand the historical narrative we tell ourselves and those who visit us, I believe it is incumbent on us to dig deeper into the historical record and to work towards constructing a fuller and more accurate story. In order to gain a better understanding of the role of specific topics such as Sullivan's Island, its pest houses, Gadsden's Wharf, and similar sites, I believe it's necessary to view these individual sites as component parts of both a broader landscape that encompasses all of Charleston Harbor and a broader logistical and legal process. Just like the cargo ships entering Charleston Harbor today, the transatlantic vessels that once brought African captives to Charleston were obliged to follow a series of legal protocols imposed on the arrival and movement of valuable assets into and across the geography of Charleston Harbor. In order to see the relevance of this comparison and understand the logic behind their collective movements into and across the harbor, it's important to recognize that all of the African captives brought into the port of Charleston for the purpose of sale were considered cargo rather than passengers. As such, the story of their movements in the first days of their American experience followed the same trajectory as all other imported commodities, living and inanimate. Once we acknowledge that these Africans represented a sort of cargo to the people that held them in bondage, it becomes easier to recognize that this human cargo was part of a business, which was governed by a system of legal protocols and followed a series of logistical steps within a confined geographic space. The arrival of slave ships into the port of Charleston represented the final links in a much longer chain of transatlantic commerce. Using our business lens to view the tail end of this journey, we might identify the two principal branches of this process as arrival and sale. Each of these topics can be further divided into smaller themes, including pilotage, inspection, quarantine, entry, advertisement, preparation, auction, and delivery. For each step, we can identify a set of legal parameters and practices, a number of actors, and a set of geographic locations. It's my hope that this work will create an intellectual framework that will improve our understanding of the contributing role of locations such as Sullivan's Island, Gadsden's Wharf, and many others. Simultaneously, I believe this exercise will provide us with a general temporal and geographic outline that will help us appreciate the experiences endured by the nearly 200,000 people who entered Charleston Harbor in bondage. I haven't finished writing this material, and I haven't even finished collecting the necessary data. But having settled on a methodology for this project, however, I feel confident that I'm on a viable path and I'm ready to get started. In the coming months, I plan to present an ongoing series of periodic installments that will eventually, after a couple of years, coalesce into a proper book. The final product will be more than just a compilation of podcast-sized chunks, of course, but the present format works well for tackling a big subject in a series of installments. By way of preview, I'll just mention a few of the themes you can expect to hear about in upcoming episodes. First, we'll talk about the entry of commercial vessels into Charleston Harbor and how the relatively simple act of crossing the bar triggered a series of mandatory transactions and duties that were prescribed by law and enforced by a number of agents on behalf of the local government. Here, we'll learn about the role of pilots, searchers, waiters, collectors, signal flags, and the guns of Fort Johnson. Next, we'll delve into the convoluted history of local quarantine law. That is, the legal protocol enacted by the government of South Carolina to prevent the introduction of contagious diseases that might be carried by people, Africans and Europeans, arriving from abroad. Here we'll learn about the cooling of the heels and the stretching of the legs, the use of smoke and vinegar, the delivery of food, water, and clothing, and the opposing efforts of local merchants and local physicians. We'll also explore the geography relevant to this story, including the several physical sites and structures in and around Charleston Harbor that were used for the anchorage, quarantine, landing, and sale of slave cargoes. This endeavor will encompass such familiar places as Sullivan's Island, Fort Johnson, and Gadsden's Wharf, as well as a variety of less familiar wharfs and some now obscure place names such as Rebellion Road, the ironically named Point Comfort, and a colonial-era auction site commonly known as the Usual Place. Layered on top of each of these subplots is, of course, the main theme of this entire exercise: the arrival of nearly 200,000 African captives in nearly 1,000 cargoes between the years 1670 and 1808. During the course of that entire time span, each of the storylines I just mentioned was a fluid narrative that changed over time according to a variety of circumstances, both local and transatlantic. Describing the role of a place like Sullivan's Island or Gadsden's Wharf within this multi-layered dynamic narrative is, therefore, like trying to hit the proverbial moving target. In my mind, getting a solid grip on the larger context will help us to see the important facts more clearly. But that's just my personal methodological solution. For those of you who really care about this topic, I hope today's program didn't seem like an unnecessarily complicated, overly academic exercise. My explanation might seem pedantic to some, but I hope the goal is clear. I want to marshal the surviving documentary evidence related to this terrible business in a way that helps us to honor the memory of a large body of people whose names are almost entirely lost.
All righty, so let's move forward in our assessment of information so that I can go ahead and knock this all out. I want to walk it down. So the brother made a claim that did not happen in Charleston, South Carolina. So I want to bring you to something very useful for all of y'all, man. And this is why I left this in the chat. This is the slave manifest for Charleston, South Carolina. Okay? Now, it gets better. Because what I'm about to do is I'm about to show you some shit that you probably have never seen a day in your life. Now, remember, there was nearly 1,000 cargoes coming to and leaving out of Charleston that dealt with the enslavement of Africans. Okay? You can see here it says the shipper, it says the outbound ports, and then it gives up some locations, whatever. And we can go get more. These records are also available through here, and you can get more and more. So I'm gonna click on David Adams, slave owner, right? Ship name was Edgefield. They said the ship didn't exist. The ship name is Edgefield. The outbound port was Hamburg, South Carolina. The date was 2/11/1826. Shipmaster was John Sassard. The shipper we do not know, but the slave owner was David Adams. So the slave, there's a slave named George who was 35 years old, male, black. Okay, I know. That's what it says right here. Watch this. Slave owner's name, we got that already. But let's go by slave names. All righty. So we're back to this alphabetical order. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have the slaves' names. They don't have a last name, but they have slave names. So let's go take a look at Abigail. Who was Abigail owned by? She was on that damn John Cesar shit. We got the shipper's name is Simon Keaton. All right, she came up out of Augusta, right? Outbound port was Augusta. So she came from Augusta to South Carolina. Ship name was Edgefield. Remember, I showed y'all earlier that. Who else was on there with this lady, Abigail? William, Kitch, Fib, another William, Patty, Scipio. Scipio was a baby, 8 months old. Patty was 4. Young William was 11. One person on this ship was a mulatto. Go back. We can go to another person. All of these are involving slave manifests from Charleston to wherever they ended up. This would go from Charleston to Augusta. The Shivers were the shippers. Joseph Blackman was the shipmaster. May 18th, 1826, the Hamburg. And this is just, you know, moving people that came off a boat and then turning around and sending them to other places after they've been purchased. We ain't got to make none of this shit up. Right? We don't have to make anything up for anyone. We could just deal with the actual information. Okay? And then you can find out these people's names and yada, yada, yada. So this opens it up. But it's all, like I always been saying, when they ask you what was your grandmother or grandfather's name who came up off a boat, you're not going to have their last name because their last name is inherited. If you can find their first name, then you can track them down, right? You can track them down. Now, a lot of what was said in the chat is also true. A lot of people that ended up in Charleston did come from the Caribbeans directly, which came directly. From the Caribbeans, which came from Africa directly. So they called them yellow bones, yellow. See, they're making distinctions: mulatto, yellow, black. We all know that blacks are the descendants of Africans. Okay, so this is one of the tools that I wanted to run by people, or we can slow walk them using primary evidence to be like, hey, look, you said this shit didn't exist, and then Sean's over here showing you these manifests for Charleston, South Carolina. Remember, he claimed that this didn't happen. This stuff wasn't taking place. These people were so-called Indians or some shit. But this is telling you listen, why would Indians or natives or Aboriginals be on ships? Fuck they need to be on a ship for? It says, click on each ship name to view the list of slaves included on that trip. So we don't have to make anything up. And there's plenty more of that. Okay? There's plenty more of that. So just to double down on Charleston, South Carolina, I want to talk about the African presence in South Carolina. Why would they be commemorating the shit that happened if it didn't happen? So there's some keywords you can click on here. You can kind of get some information there. It says this post continues our Wednesday series that highlights historical middle passages, UNESCO site of memory markers. So yeah, if you are unfamiliar with that, UNESCO has marked some of the sites as historical sites, and they will remain such because they have an impact on world history. And this, Sean, look for the ship Felice. Hold on 1 second. Let me go back. Phyllis. You said the ship Phyllis? Hold on. Is it Phyllis with the Y or is it Phyllis with 2 L's? And was it in South Carolina or was it somewhere else? While I'm looking this up. Hold on, I'm gonna come back to it. I got the thing up, so I'll just come back to it. But let me talk about this source real quick. Anyway, although people often date the first arrival of the enslaved Africans in the U.S. to 1619, when 20 and odd Negroes arrived in the British colony of Virginia, actually enslaved Africans arrived almost 100 years earlier. In 1526, as part of a Spanish expedition to establish an outpost of North American coast in present-day South Carolina. The leader of that expedition we know is Lucas Vasquez de Ayllon, a wealthy Spanish trader. Died a month later, and in November of that same year, Africans launched a rebellion and effectively destroyed the Spanish settlers' ability to sustain the settlement, which they abandoned a year later. Most people don't know that, but now you have that. Okay? It goes on, it tells a whole other story. It involves, the shipping of Africans across the continent. 81 ocean crossings brought 132,267 captive African children, women, and men to Charleston. I'm going to say this again. According to the source is according to the voyages, slave voyages, the transatlantic slave trade database from 1710 to 1808, 81 ocean crossings brought 132,267 captive African children, women, and men to Charleston. That number has been projected upward of 200,000. Eventually, Africans in bondage and their descendants outnumbered the European descended population. To manage the enslaved, Black codes were regulated all phases of Black life. I don't want to buckle down on anything. The significance here is that 132,000 people were brought across the ocean to South Carolina, Charleston to be specific, a place where the brother said this shit did not happen, it didn't exist, it didn't go down that way. That's what he claimed. So why would they have Middle Passage ceremonies and port marker projects to commemorate this stuff? This is crazy. And yeah, there are sources here to help substantiate what they were talking about. You heard the Sullivan's Island brought up earlier. So here's some images from Sullivan's Island where it's commemorated in 2008. And as you can see, people were paying homage. Yeah. And doing those things. Slave auction. Here's an auction marker in South Carolina. I thought this shit didn't happen. All right. According to the brother. Now, you can continue to go through this project. You can go to Texas. You can go to Rhode Island. You can find other states. And you're going to find some information regarding the African presence in those states. This source is going to take you all 50 states. Look at that. Pennsylvania. Yeah, this Rhode Island. So this is another tool to substantiate what the fuck happened to Black people. Okay? Now, this is also going to give you some primary information. Sites. Look at this. Here lieth Edward, Negro servant to Mr. Henry Collins, died February 16th, 1738. Rhode Island dominates North American slave trade in the 18th century. Middle Passage. Come on, man. We talking this Liberty Square, like, yo, it's got everything you need right there. We can go to each state. He said he was confused. It definitely did happen. And they're going to give you that. So this link that I gave all of y'all, that source is a really good source because it does go state by state, and it will provide some additional information to trickle down on the whole Charleston effect. I have slavery collections from 1709 to 1864, which is series 5 out of 6 manifests from 1812 to 1855. And what I want to do is I want to talk about, since I'm big on South Carolina, I'm gonna give you the slave ship name, the manifest of the schooner Thames, and this has got somebody on there that was enslaved. Not only that, you can go and pay close attention to steamer Powhatan, ship manifest of Negro, mulattoes, and persons of color taken on steamer Powhatan from Washington Port of Alexandria, Virginia to Charleston, South Carolina. Boom. You see it, move on. Same thing over and 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 over. All of this shit is shipping manifest for something that they said didn't transpire, take place. But this also answers a lot of questions. And even though this will have to do a lot with just moving bodies around. All right. Now, I've given you guys all the tools that's necessarily needed to refute somebody stupid, like the dude that came on the panel and was talking to Jazz. Let me go back to your email, Khalil, real fast. I don't know if I can play this, but I'm gonna pull it up. And I think I've seen this before. It's a minute, 24 seconds. No, hold up. All right, so I'm gonna put it on the screen so that people can see it. And then I'm gonna share it in the chat so people can have it. But this video right here talks about we finally discovered the Native Americans' true history. And this was posted 5 days ago. And it answers in Genesis is the apologetics, Christianity, yada, yada, yada. I don't know, all of that. I think this is what you're referring to. So let me get people here. I mean, this is basically going to support what we've been saying. I already know it because of how the maps and the direction of this build is going. Yeah, I won't be able to play this right here because it'll get us a strike. And then we can deal with it. But if y'all want to watch this, it's going to get into DNA. And it's going to talk about the migrations. And it's going to get into all of that. Yep. It ain't doing nothing but verifying what we've been saying about who the actual first people were in the Americas. You said the 1761 ship Phyllis. Is that 1761 for Phyllis Wheatley arrived? So you want me to tell them about Phyllis Wheatley and how she arrived? Because I assume that's what you're trying to get at with this right here. On July 11th, 1761. I'll show them. So Poet, considered the founder of African American literature, was born around 1753, probably among the Fulani people living in near the Gambia River in West Africa. Her poetry, yada, yada, yada. African consciousness she brought to North America when she was captured at the age 7 or 8, enslaved and forced aboard the Phyllis, which is a brigantine owned by Timothy Fitch of Medford, Massachusetts, and Captain Peter Gwynn of Boston. According to the Slave Voyages database, she embarked from the windward coast of Africa with 95 fellow Africans and was one of 76 who survived the deprivations of the ship's cramped and squalid conditions and arrived in Boston 245 days later wearing only a scrap of carpet. So I will give this to y'all so you can read the entire story, but I figured that's what you wanted, was the slave ship Phyllis. Let it tell a story about Phyllis Wheatley and yada, yada, yada. But they have to answer those questions about how they got here. We know how Africans got here, right? We know people who descend from Africans. We know how our ancestors got here, right? We're not confused about that. So now they have to tell us how they think that they got here. And if they said they sprouted up out the damn ground or something crazy, man, it is what it is. Hold on 1 second. All right, so Africans called them Jana Jaweed. Sentient being is making up shit. Yep. I mean, that's usually how a lot of that go, man. Yeah, he was half fuller. That's why we know what we know about a lot of these people, is the fact that we dealt with this. You sense that's the same email, okay. So I just don't want nobody to get lost in the sauce thinking that South Carolina has this whole new history that seems to be spewed from only the lenses of one particular person. We later will find out that he's also pushing a Moorish doctrine, because he went behind saying that they always been here to turning around and then later saying something about some Moorish bullshit later on in the build. And then at that point, I believe it was right before I dropped off, I said, all right, not a coincidence, I had enough. And then I left. Hold on. Let me see if I'm still here. I gotta find where I'm at. All right, so I'm right here. So all right, I'm gonna play this video from this point right here. Let's see what happens. Watch this. Death Trap.
To my back.
Hey, hold on. I'm trying to talk to Not a Coincidence real quick.
But we want to hear Jarvis. Jarvis, I'm gonna let Jarvis go.
Do y'all agree? Do y'all agree that there was so-called black people on this land since the beginning of time? Do y'all agree with that?
No.
So y'all think everybody on the land was white? See how
Nobody was white.
Nobody
saying that. Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him.
Go ahead, Andy.
So,
Go ahead,
Get
Andy.
him, Andy. Get him, Andy.
So what is your
Andy? Who's Andy? Who's
Hey, hold on. Hey,
Andy, the real Native American out here. He the real
the what?
Exactly.
not a coincidence.
He's the real Aboriginal.
Not a coincidence.
What does Native American mean?
Yes.
What does Native mean?
Hey,
What's
not
the
a
fuck
coincidence.
dude?
Hey, bro, holla at me real quick.
Yeah, what does
bro.
Native mean?
I'm listening. Hold on.
Hold on. Hey,
Native
Jarvis, hold on, bro. I'm about to mute up.
Someone
I'm about
who's
to go back
native
on
to
mute.
this land. Who's
I'm
born
about to
here.
go back
Who's
on
been
mute,
here.
bro. Hold on, nigga. Hey, not a
Sorry.
coincidence. Bro, holla at me real quick, bro. Bro,
Yeah.
you come on my channel, bro. I'm gonna let you rock, get wrenched up.
Why
all
would he
that
want to
shit,
come
bro.
on your channel to be dumbed
Nigga,
down
shut
to
the
some
fuck up,
stupid
Sassy.
shit?
Because
That nigga gotta
this
save
is
his brain
confusion,
cells
bro.
for when
This
you
is
motherfuckers
this
come on
is
his
scholarship.
platform. Why would he go
This
use
is
him on your
scholarship,
shit?
nigga. This is
What
confusion.
kind of
All
backwards
you
ass
need
Well,
shit
to
is
do
that?
is push
that's real
narrative.
shit,
Yeah, bro,
sure.
I can't even
God
talk to
damn.
not a coincidence without Sassy cutting in. Sassy want to be your
All
daddy.
right,
I
hold
can
on,
see it.
y'all. Hold on,
Sassy
y'all.
want to
Come
be
on,
your
real
daddy.
rap,
It's
because
cool.
real rap. Come on, because
Not to disrespect you,
a
bro.
couple people got some questions for a couple other people. Come on, back to the info. Let's go.
That nigga,
No,
that nigga, his
look.
feelings.
All I'm asking, bro, is give me a chance. Come
You
on
on,
my shit.
you on
I'm
your
gonna let you
period,
rock.
ain't you,
And we
Champa?
get to
Ain't
some real scholarship.
you?
Hey,
You on
look,
your period, ain't
we
you?
getting
Okay.
real rap over here to this Pan African. He's inching over here. I'm telling you, like in a minute, at the end of the year, real
I'm
rap.
not a
gonna be-
Pan African.
That nigga.
Not a
Look,
coincidence. Can
bro,
I get
I
the
love
floor?
my Africans, bro. I love my Africans,
Andy,
bro.
Andy, what's up,
Pan
Andy?
African. That nigga was
I
Pan
love my
African
Africans,
Friday.
bro.
It's
I
Monday,
love
and
my
now this
niggas.
nigga.
No, because I want to talk to the dude who's claiming
I'm
that
not a fucking
black people
advocate,
came
son.
prior to the
Shut
Native
the fuck up.
Americans.
All right,
Sassy,
hold
you
on.
need this
Your
shit.
motherfucking
Yo, hold on.
nigga.
All right, Andy, I got you. You next
You
for the
talk about
question.
me, King.
Go ahead.
I'm talking to Sassy with his bitch ass.
Nah,
Yo,
this
come on,
Andy.
real rap.
Hold on, real rap. Andy and
Come
Dark.
on, real rap. You just had the floor. It didn't look good for you, man. Come on.
Bro, no. Y'all niggas, bro.
You'll have another chance, bro.
I was playing, hey, I'm sharing this
But
on
look,
my
with
channel.
me, listen, with
Niggas
me,
can
y'all
see
get
I can't even get
unlimited
a
chances,
paragraph
bro.
out, bro. Now,
No,
No,
because
look.
there's other people on the like Andy and
Real
Darvis.
rap.
Andy got a question for
Bro,
Darvis.
I'll let y'all niggas talk. Nigga, I've been here for 4 hours. I've been here
Shut the
since the
fuck
shit.
up crying like a
Real
bitch,
rap.
I've been here for 3 hours. Nigga, I got 10
No, but
minutes.
look,
I can't even get a paragraph.
listen.
That's why I'm saying, come to my shit. I'm gonna let you rock. Not a coincidence.
Don't
Fuck this
nobody
nigga
want to come
Sassy.
over there to
This
your
nigga wanna be
sorry
your
ass
daddy,
channel,
bro.
bro.
This nigga wanna be your dad. and
Andy,
bring
what's
you
your
up.
question,
All right,
Andy?
yo, real rap. Come on,
My
bro.
question for
Yo,
Darvis
bro,
is,
come on, bro.
can you substantiate that claim that black people were here in the Americas prior to the Native Americans and the
Yes.
fucking
Prior to you.
Europeans?
Yes. Let me ask you a question now. Where your ancestors from?
Nah, he asked you a
My
question, and you
ancestors
just
are
And I asked him a
try
question.
to
Yeah,
ask him
cool.
a question.
And I
okay. Let
answered
me
it, and I
answer this
said
fucking
yes.
question.
And I said yes.
Sean,
And I asked him,
it's
where's
between
his
me and
ancestors
him.
from?
My
I'm asking,
ancestors
yes. When I
are
said
from
yes, we
Mexico.
were here before the Native American came. That's what I said. And you can check my bloodline. Now I'm asking him, Andy, where are your people from?
How you gonna check out your bloodline?
Mexico.
The genetics.
That's where my people are from.
No. You're not the original Mexicans, though. Because you don't look like the original
How
Mexicans.
am I not the original
Where are your
fucking
people from?
Mexicans?
Hold up.
Because you're
What
not,
you gonna do,
nigga.
original
You are part of
Mexicans?
you part of an immigration migration
I'm
that
out.
came from
Fucking
I'm out.
Lord.
Asia, who sold out their government, so America
I leave right here after this.
can goddamn well throw their government. Y'all,
That man that said he's part of a whole immigration migration. A whole immigration migration. I said, all right, not a coincidence. I'm out. Oh, this stupid mug. This dude is a fool. He gonna tell Andy that his people ain't even indigenous and that the black people been here. But he ain't got no evidence for it. He couldn't even prove that his ancestors wasn't even descendants of, that he don't descend from slaves. He tried to say that because his people own 400 and some acres, which I think is cap, that they always been here. But he got the last name of somebody who is English and Scottish. He's technically right. but wasn't nobody in the Americas. It was unpopulated. We have no evidence that is prior to the Paleo-Indian crossing the straits and taking the shores to people the Americas. We don't have separate cultures. We don't have different burial beliefs and practices, which ties back to culture. What we see is something that is similar to each other all over this joker. No, we don't. We do not have evidence that predates the Paleo-Indians in the Americas. The oldest fossils that we have only go back to 23,000 years. We have no hominids. We have no Homo sapien burials. We don't have none of that. We have one archaeological claim of a boat being about 30,000 years old in South America. So that would set the estimation of people peopling the Americas somewhere between 23 and 30,000 years, give or take 3,000 years. The link is in the chat. The link in the chat, bro. The link in the chat. Come show me hominids. Come show me a human being that was here 25,000 years ago. If it's easily debunked, right? As you say, it's easily debunked. Bring me the first settlers of the Americas that's older than 25,000 years. Go get your sources, because you're gonna need them. Don't come on here talking. Go get your sources. Man, listen, look what he put in the chat. Look what he put in the chat, y'all. This book, right, that he just put in the chat. See, it goes to show that he doesn't understand what I just said. Unexpected Faces in Ancient Americas between 1500 BC to 1500 AD. It doesn't even cover a period that would take you back 25,000 years. 1500 BC ain't that far back, bro. 1500 BC is not that far back. You're not listening. I asked you for evidence of 25,000 year evidence for humans being in the Americas. Didn't no goddamn flood happen in the Americas, bruh? What flood happened in the Americas? What's the name of the flood? If a flood happened in the Americas 2,000 years ago, we still got evidence of humans 10,000 years ago. So the flood didn't destroy shit. You making this whole shit up, bro. What the fuck you think this is? This ain't the biblical narrative. We talking reality. We ain't talking no biblical narrative, nothing. What is you talking about, bro? I said the link is in the chat. Bring your evidence. There ain't no. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing here prior to the Paleo-Indian. No matter what you say, there's no evidence. The Paleo-Indian is the first people of America. No matter what you say, there's no other people here. The genetic evidence demonstrates and provides proof of that. The archaeological record substantiates that proof. So now you have genetic proof, you have archaeological proof, you have anthropological data, you have linguistic assessments, you have all the sciences marrying together, providing evidence substantially. I ain't gave Indians credit for anything. I didn't give them credit. They're Homo sapiens. They're wise. All they did was migrate to an unpopulated area. They were chasing animals. What am I gonna give them credit for chasing animals for? With all due respect to the Native Americans and your ancestors who you descend from, with all due respect, the Native American population, the people of the Americas, has not provided the world anything substantial to further the development of the rest of the world outside of corn. There's no science or technology that they had that was substantial enough to advance other societies. What I mean by that is what worked for the Native Americans in North, Central, and South America was specifically for the Native Americans in North, Central, and South Americas. There was no groundbreaking ideas or any of that they had. And it's not to belittle or disrespect them, because their contributions were for themselves and their advancement. They were unfamiliar with the old world. So there was no need for any advancements with the old world or any sciences and technologies for the old world. So I'm not taking nothing away from them. They just didn't advance. They didn't have no groundbreaking anything. So you said I'm giving them credit for what? Corn? Absolutely. We love grilled corn, corn on the cob, boiled, however y'all prepare y'all corn. You know what I'm saying? Most people do the whole, what is that? The little thing where they cream of corn. We get into all of that, bruh. That's a nice meal. You know what I'm saying? So you tripping. Now let me get back into this chat, because I put the link in the chat, bro, and you still typing. You still typing. You still typing. There was no transatlantic slave trade in 2000 BC. The shit kicked off in the 14th century. Why would you say that? And Khalil is being funny to you. What Khalil is doing is mocking you. He's mocking you. You don't know when you're being mocked? You don't know when you're being mocked? What up, True?
What up? When you was talking about corn, we grow about 31 different species of corn. And we grow squash, we grow pumpkins, we grow 3 different squash, 2 different pumpkins, and beans. You know, and I don't get these albos thinking it's so cool about a mound. My people build mounds. All
Right.
you do just put some dirt together. There's no science to it.
Bro, they didn't even do that, True. They didn't do that,
people. Get 300 people, get some shovels, and you can build yourself a big ass mound. Yeah.
They didn't even do that, bro. They fictitiously, you know, And what you said was significant because they wouldn't even be able to tell us how many different variations of corn, squash, or pumpkins that exist that you grew. So they couldn't tell us the vegetation. They can't even give us the cultural aspects of what it was like to live prior to the encountering Europeans, right? They can't tell us a history of acknowledging the dismal impact of disease on the people in South Central and North America, especially Central and North America, because in the South, the damn Amazon, you know what I mean, distance, that land mass, the way that South America was constructed prevented a large population in South America from being annihilated by diseases until they come into contact with these people later on, if they came into contact. What you showing us right there, True?
That's corn right there. Squash, beans, pumpkin. They say we don't even do this no more. We still do. You know? And I'm half black too. I'm mixed. And my people know their culture. Even my black family know their African history, which is a trip.
Yeah. So I don't even understand why they would even say that. And then I know you probably trolling Never Hungry Again. And it's cool because you didn't hit the link. And I knew you wouldn't hit the link because that link been out there before and you never jumped on. So he said, "Nah, y'all win." Yeah, we know history, so you can't take away from that. Now, the biggest difference between Truth Hurts and other people is the simple fact that he recognizes something significant. He said, "My African side doesn't deny their African side or their native side, and the native side doesn't. They are cohesively married, bro. So even if you wanted to say the best argument for me, and I'm gonna just say this for all of y'all, for not you, True, but a lot of people claim to be Aboriginal to the Americas. Is stop denying your African side for those of you who intermingled with the natives.
Yeah, a lot of them did.
So if you have that ancestry, don't deny your Africanness. Your ancestors didn't. But for those of you, which is a very large portion of you that don't even have that Native American ancestry, you just robbing and stealing people's culture, give that shit up. Admit your faults and learn who you really are. It's just that simple. Donnie, we know, but you're right. Big up Virginia. What else you got for Truth?
Yeah, man, that's it. You know, I'm just showing you, you know, telling you, you know, we still do our culture.
So tell me a little bit.
Like to say we don't. Excuse
Yeah.
me?
So why I got you here, I want to talk about your garden, right? So how long does it take? How long does it take to grow squash, pumpkins, and the 31 different types of corn?
Don't even really take long at all. It takes up to 3 months, and you can knock that out and regrow again. You know, we have 3 sisters, so we grow the corn first. Then we put in the beans. Then we put the squash on the outside, so that squash could take care of the weeds, so they won't grow. And the beans give the corn nutrients. That's why we put them together.
So you put the beans and the squash next to each other because
Yeah.
one does something for the other, and the other does something for the other.
Yeah, it's called 3 sisters.
Even swap, no swindle.
Yeah. So it's called 3 sisters, but it's not exactly because you're like in the survival mode. So you're just growing like 5 different squash around that corn. So you grow 5 different beans around that corn. So when that beans grow, you wrap them around the corn. so they can keep growing. And after that, we knock out when they're fully grown. We take them out and we let them dry. We sun dry it, and you could just take them out as seeds, and you can cook them and eat them.
What's your favorite meal?
Conchi Pahana.
What does it consist of?
Conchi Pahana is like a it's like a what does those Mexicans eat? Same thing what those Mexicans, like a tamale.
Tamale, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tamale, but it's just corn powder and beans wrapped up in corn husk.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now on your native side, right?
And we grow and we make cornbread too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we do it the hard way. I'd rather go to the store and buy the mix.
Now, that's a large process trying to break that down and grain it out But what about your native side? Where they come from?
They come from Oklahoma. Actually, they're actually from Mississippi.
Okay, so they were so your distant ancestors, the earliest ancestors, were they the Mississippians?
Yeah, the Choctaws.
Okay.
From Mississippi, but they on the Trail of Tears, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, Choctaws really come from Mexico, from the Mayan people.
Mm-hmm.
Even comes interesting when you do your DNA, they come further than that. So I did my DNA, and it says I have South American Indian, which is kind of weird. So I look up the South American Indian and the traditions they do. We do the same, even the Mayan.
What was your haplogroups?
Haplogroups?
Yeah.
African American and white and Native American.
Okay. What? No. The haplogroup. So was it the Q, A, J?
I never seen that. No, I never checked it. I never checked
it. Which DNA did you use?
Ancestry.com.
Okay, because they don't do the haplo. They do the admixture.
Yeah.
So how much Native American did you have?
Well, I'm supposed to be half Native American, coming up to be like 47%.
Well, it's more than 20. I think there's a threshold that they say. So you had 47% Native American?
Yes.
How much African?
About 35%, which is weird, and the rest is white.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have some type of European ancestry because of the damn history.
Yep. And I found my slave owners who own my family. Out there in Virginia. My family always say they're from North Carolina on the black side, but it actually took me to Virginia. And he was a slave owner who owned my family, and he was a military man. I went there for my genealogy.
You got to take another DNA test, bro. You got to do 23andMe.
Why, that was a good one?
Yeah. You could right around Father's Day, since it's the next holiday, they'll do a sale where it's 50% off or maybe even more. And so it's only like $40 to take the test. And that'll provide you you can compare it with your ancestry, but of course it tests for different things, but it'll give you haplogroups. So you'll know your genetic markers. So you'll know, like, as far as your African side, you'll know what that haplogroup mark that group is. As far as your Native American side, that you'll know if you're, Q or whatever the case may be. And then that'll help tell a bigger story because you've already substantiated some stuff about South America. And that would basically mean, according to your ancestry, to validate your ancestry on your native side, would that be that you were part of the South American migration, your eldest ancestor? And if that is true, then that is a part of substantiating history to show that, hey, y'all came from South America up.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, because the same chicky we make, they make them too. The same arrows with 2 feathers, they make them too. Blowguns, we got them too, which is a trip. And they dance together when they gather. They don't separate. That's what the same thing we do in our culture. So I have a lot of same shit we do. It's crazy. Then it took me to the Yucatan or something like that in Mexico of the Mayans, and that's what stories of our people always say, telling us as young we came from that area of the Mayan people, and maybe that's why we build mounds, because just like the Mayan temples, we didn't have rock but we had dirt, so probably there's a semblance or something like that too. So I'm doing a lot of research and a study on this.
Okay. Yeah. So Keely, Lewis and Gene, I've heard that they got a. Well, hold on. It's similar. That story is similar to what's the name of that movie? The slave movie. I forget the name of it, but you know what I mean. They had an influence in Louisiana. Who you referring to? And they actually had some stuff written in 2023 in regard to Lewis. But I don't remember in detail about Lewis and Gene, but I know it was kind of similar to like what was this? What was the slave ship? Well, you could say Kunta Kinte, then that would be, yeah. But I was thinking more like the where they did the rebellion on the slave ship, Amistad. And I'm only saying that because of like the court situation and shit like that. I'm not necessarily saying that they were a part of a rebellion. But let me pull it up and see real quick. Yeah, 12 Years a Slave. Boom. Yeah. So I'm not saying in general it was Amistad. No, I'm not talking rebellion, but I'm talking about like the magnificence of their story was similar to Amistad, if that makes sense, right? Because they had to go to court. It was some type of battles, stuff like that. I vaguely remember some of it. Let me look it up. Hold on. Let me see if I can find that article too. All right, hold on 1 second. Here we go. Right here, right? Akili. This is that article I was referring to. Louis Congo, ex-slave and executioner of Louisiana. So it says on November 21st, 1725, African slave Louis Congo was freed and made a salaried public executioner in Louisiana by the Company of the Indies. The corporation chose him because French colonialists considered execution carried out by a Negro the most effective and debasing punishment of white criminals could receive in the wild and unruly colony. For 12 years, Congo served as New Orleans public executioner and whipped and tortured, amputated, and executed anyone sentenced to physical punishment or death by the justice system. So that's why I meant by that whole thing. Now the Gene, there you go. But anybody that want this, you know what I mean, I can give it to you. But some of y'all already knew about it. So what else you got though, Truth?
That's about it, man. You know, I just chill up in here. Hope you get some albos up in here. What they got to say.
Yeah. Well, you know, to be honest with you, Truth, those guys they don't come on this platform. I'm not as lucky. It's not a coincidence to be able to have those guys on, and then when they do come, they say the dumbest shit. So it's kind of hard pressed to actually talk about them. And facts, rest in peace to Anime Bullet. I had me and Gene Base, 12 Years Slave. But yeah, man, they don't come here for reasons, bro.
Yeah. Well, they should. They need to come and listen and learn something from some real instead of freestyling history.
Right. Here's something significant though, just for in reference to um Akili. Peep this, right? Africans, hold on, let me make this bigger on the screen. Africans like Louis Congo arrived in Louisiana when Europeans trafficked them by the ship from West Africa or the West Indies and sold them to French colonists who desired slaves to labor in agriculture fields. In 1712, there were 20 black people in Louisiana. By 1717, French Minister of Finance John Law received a charter to import slaves under the Mississippi Company. The Mississippi Company later became the Company of the Indies, and from 1719 to 1743, the company legally trafficked 6,000 African slaves from French-occupied colonies in West Africa. And this is why you have all of that history referring back to Africa in places like Mississippi, south of Alabama, and in the Louisiana areas, you have the Congo Square and stuff like that. Like, there's relevance for that stuff. So denying that would be a stupid move. And, you know, it is what it is at that point.
I don't understand why they think the Gila Geechees are actually from the South. They're real indigenous from the South. If you look at their flag, it's a tree from Africa. They always claim the Gila Geechees are the true Southern Indians, the Southeast Indians, which is a trip. And they got their flag, and it's a tree from Africa. Don't even grow in Americas. Now that actually have me laughing, especially from Aboriginal TV, who always claims that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, yo, not a C. You going live? I don't know who this is. Sad state of affairs.
What's going on? It's King Cass.
Oh shit, man! Why the hell you keep changing her damn?
Oh, I gotta change it back, man, because that was the time when they
You
got
sound
caught up in all
staticky,
those
bro.
scams. Huh?
You sound staticky, like your mic broke.
I'm about to log in on the computer.
Yeah, me and him was getting into it over on Citrus Betty's channel. With these,
y'all was on the channel?
Yeah, I'll be out there. I'll be everywhere.
You was with Sister Bethany?
Yeah, I was on there. There was this dude named Brown Wolf who was claiming he spoke my language. He got some words off the computer. He couldn't pronounce it right. When I kept telling him, you got to know the dialect. That's what you got to grow up into, the language, to know the dialect, because I don't even know what you're saying and stuff. And he's all, oh, you're fake. I was like, how? Because I don't know what you're saying. He tried to say hello in our language. He tried to say halito. When it's not halito, it's halito. You got to put to, halito. In it. That's how you say hello, but he kept on saying it the wrong way. And he tried to use one of our clan names, and he couldn't pronounce it right either. So, yeah, these fools are tripped, you know, and they kept calling me fake because I couldn't understand what he was saying when he was saying he was speaking my language. Where you have to know the words right. It's like trying to learn Spanish. It's because you pick up a word on the internet, your tongue has to have that, what the Mexicans do, whatever they do, to pronounce it like that. But yeah, he didn't know anything.
Cool. So, hold on one second. I'm trying to see if I can find a source on the flag real quick. Give me a second. What up, y'all?
What's happening? What's going on, man? It's good that you got a real Choctaw on today, because you know I've seen videos of actual Choctaw actually speaking. I actually have videos on YouTube of actual Choctaw speaking the language, and these dudes don't understand the language. It just we all have the stories. You know what I mean? The indigenous stories where you may have heard like your grandma was half Choctaw, half Cherokee, Blackfoot, or something like that. We all have a story. No one's ever said that they were fully this or fully that. We always hear like your grandma, your great grandma might have been, part Choctaw or part Cherokee. That's why they have that long hair and those high cheekbones. Turning out that that's actually a white person inside of them, but that's usually the case. And a lot of black folks don't want to get off of that. They can't prove it. A lot of them don't want to take DNA tests now because they're afraid of not having an indigenous ancestry. It's pretty embarrassing, bro.
Yeah, I remember my grandma on my black side told me we was part of Cherokee. And then she said we were.
Yeah, I always say that. My grandma
my brother questioned her too. My brother's like, "What?" I said, "Why do we look black? I don't know. Black folks got some strong genes because we look more black." And we're like, "Oh, should we look more Indian than black if we were a quarter?" That didn't make sense. She goes, "We're a quarter," but my grandma looked like she's from straight Nigeria. So that means she had to be half. But she looked like she came from Nigeria.
Yo, my grandma said that too. My granddad was a Cherokee, part Cherokee man, dark skin with a long braid. And on our great grandfather's side, they said some Choctaw folks were supposed to show up to the family reunion. They never showed up. These Choctaw people.
Yeah, man. I swear.
They never showed up, man.
Yeah, it is that white side.
But the only historical information I can find, because it's not just, they didn't just do this here in the States. This is like stuff that went on in the islands too. Like you go to Dominican Republic and you talk to a lot of dark skinned folks down there. You know what I'm saying? They be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Indio." You call them black or Africano or whatever, man. They stab you. They shank you. Not all of them, but a lot of folks, right, in the Dominican Republic and a lot of Latin American areas. And even in Jamaica, you will find folks talking about the Taino thing. And some may have had, like, we ain't gonna say everybody don't have it, right? But, I was just learning it's not exclusively a Black American thing. It's just.
Well, for us, you got to remember, though. You got to remember, I'm going to cut your wisdom, but the fact that our people were saying it for a reason. They were trying to escape slavery. They used that to escape slavery, bro.
They were trying to be exotic for a reason. They were trying to escape the oppression.
I read that about the what is those folks that come from West Virginia and Virginia area? That's the they're like a mixed group of people. They're not Creole, they Melungeon. So the Melungeons, I was reading a story where the Melungeons, when they pass a group of white folks or whatever, and they ask them where they're from, they either say something like, "Oh, Portuguese," or they'll say, "I'm Indian," which some of them may have had it in them too. You know what I'm saying? But I know the Melungeons, a lot of them were saying that, And even I had to think about just folks lightening up, like sleeping with, like, especially in Latin America, right? You got an inferiority complex, but you also got somebody that don't want their child to be oppressed. We talking about during slavery times, you know what I'm saying? And after that. So a darker skinned person going to sleep, and there's love there too. We ain't gonna say like it's people that wasn't in love as well, right? But just the whole survival technique, you know what I'm saying? Well, like, I don't want my kid to go through the stuff I've been through, you know what I'm saying? Whether it was through slavery or right after slavery. So I look at like instances with the Creole, Latin America, etc.
So real quick, just to add some emphasis, there's something that the Gullah Geechee do that is very African in origin, and it goes back to trees. So are y'all aware of the Gullah bottle tree?
Yes, sir.
Where did they get it from?
They say they got it from the Congo people, but you can give some more emphasis on that.
Okay, why do you think they got it from the Congo people? What was it?
Well, they say they used to capture.
No, let me rephrase it. What is the story behind the bottles on the tree?
I haven't looked in the Bibles. I know about it, but I haven't looked into it in depth.
It's a spiritual thing.
It's
You
spiritual.
remember that book that I showed the other day, Flashes of the Spirit? That's in there. The reason why they do that. That's how we know. That's how we know Western Central Africa is all on the map in the Geechee, because that bottle tree shit is to trap spirits and to keep evil away.
Yeah.
Well, to trap the evil spirits and keep it away. So that's one of the things that is harped on about the Gullah and that's significant up and down. Now, some people will probably act and play like, we don't do that. We don't do that. Yeah, we don't do that live. Okay, next.
Yeah, a lot of black folks, especially in the South, they be like, look, why don't have your cups? You know, if you got dirty cups, you hurry up and wash them, especially your dishes. But especially in particular with glasses, dirty glasses or whatever, and having them turned up a certain way, they need to be turned down because they were always nervous about, spirits attached to them. And me being around the Cubans, I learned they were doing that in Cuba too. They like, yo, you keep your kitchen clean. And the one guy said, because that's in the kitchen in their tradition, that's where the Agun or a spirit lives at, in the kitchen. Yeah. And my boy that's Muslim, right? They Sufis. They had us, he associated with the Sufis in Senegal. He be like, yo, I close the door, man. It's jinn in the bathroom and stuff like that, right? So this whole concept of these spirits like living in a certain area and keeping your house clean and like with dishes, like we talking about the bottle and stuff like that, right? I'm just like randomly hearing this from different people. Like I read about it, like how you read about it, read about it in the book, and see people actually still practicing these traditions, in Africa.
Right. Exactly. That's the important piece here, is that they really think that we didn't bring Africanisms to America. There's a lot of freaking Africanness in the Americas. So for anyone claiming to be Geechee, right? You're claiming to be Western Central Africans, period. If you're trying to deny that you're Geechee and you're not from Western Central Africa, then you're really destroying the fundamental foundation of the importance of the Geechee, because South Carolina was a rice coast for a reason. And a lot of the rice, right? That's why that book, Black Rice, is significant, because by South Carolina being able to, especially near the Atlantic, right? You right there where you can make and grow that rice is important, because that was gold. That's why they called it Carolina gold. It was the next biggest thing when cotton started to fade. When cotton took a decline, when sugar took a decline, all this, new stuff, rice was instrumental. People was eating the hell out of rice. This is how you end up with sugar in the rice. Pepper and salt in the rice. Right? So we owe that to our Africanness, because they knew how to cultivate rice. They knew how to make the fields, design them in a particular way, where to do it. They knew about irrigation, some level of irrigation, because they were designing this shit in a way that we knew that it was significant with West Africa, because they saw the same shit. And people who were kidnapping motherfuckers and bringing them over to the Americas knew this.
So was it any culture here in the New World, North and South America, that ate rice before pre-Columbian?
Nah, bro. Ain't nobody over here like that. But again, rest in peace to Tina Turner, man. She just passed. We said it earlier. We put it on the...
rest in peace. I did not know.
What you said?
Yeah, when I said Anime Bullock, rest in peace to Anime Bullock, yeah, she transitioned.
Yeah.
So first it was Jim Brown, like literally two or 3 days ago, Jim Brown, and now Tina Turner, who both were iconic people.
Damn.
Yeah, Jim Brown passed. I was like, yo, and Tina Turner, like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, Tina Turner had been sick for a while though too.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she lasted as long as she did, man. It's unfortunate. Hey, Sean, I was listening to you guys on Not a Coincidence, the show the other day. I don't know if you guys noticed, they're starting to really repeat that pattern of saying that that the people that you see in Africa today, those black Africans, that those are Aboriginals. They're trying to say that West African culture is indigenous to the Americas. Did you catch that? Did you guys catch that?
Which part of the show? Because the earlier part of the show, I came late. I was busy, so I came late. But
Okay, you were on a panel. I think you was having a conversation with I forgot that dude's name.
Darvis.
Yeah, that dude. This was claiming to be from Charleston. Yeah, he was insinuating that. Yeah, they went and they built all that over there.
That's my point.
Those are Aboriginal people over there.
That's my point. Is that he did say that in the exchange where he tried to say, well, we went and colonized Africa, and we did this and we did that, right? And he kept on bringing up the American Colonization Society, and I said, and I kept on saying African Colonization Society, and which I don't think.
But he said it when you left too. He said it again when you left. That's their new talking point. Is that the black Africans are indigenous Americans, bro? They've been saying. I've been telling you, they've been saying this shit for a couple of years. Some of them are now starting to be widespread. So I don't know if this is like the newest talking point where they're all trying to get on the one accord of this, but they're trying to peddle this bullshit that Igbos. He was saying Igbo culture is indigenous. That's Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal American culture.
No. Because all right, so listen, hold on. Let me do this real quick. Let me show y'all something. This is significant, right? So I'm about to pull this book out. I don't want nobody to freak out when I pull the book out. But the book right now is about $400 or $500 book, right? $400 or $500 book. Now, part 2 of this book might cost you about $1,500. You see this book?
Now I can see it. Now I can see it.
Yeah, I see it.
It says, after God is Debia.
Oh, that's Igbo all day.
What is it again?
God is Debia.
It's Igbo. It's Igbo cosmology, divination, sacred science in Nigeria. This is volume 1, $400. All right. So this immediately eliminates them from contention because they don't practice none of this shit. You see what I'm saying? So to say that would be indigenous, we could just immediately go to Debia, right? There's no. Let me go ahead and let me give you a jewel. There's no American term for this word explanation, meaning they can't find an English equivalent for what Debia means in the English language.
They say English is their language.
Right. It's they all use that in Nigeria. They all use that binary coding. I mean, that binary divination, right? 256. So you see that throughout West Africa.
Now you're talking about you going to old dudes now.
Yeah, but even I think Dibia is the Igbo. I don't know because it's different Igbo clans, right? So I know a group of Igbo uses that, and in Islamic West Africa, right? Because I've been like on this whole early Islam thing, like studying like Sufism on. It's this guy on We Talk Religion or something like that. Religious talks on.
You too religious for me,
huh?
You too religious.
Who the white guy?
You.
Oh, me? Oh man. I'm part pseudo, man. I'm part pseudo.
Yeah.
Part but the historical reference though, right?
You know you can't say that shit on the show, bro. They gonna clip that shit up and try to run it back.
But no, look, check this out. So that whole system, right? The whole binary coding system that they use the binary system they use for divination or whatever, this is spread throughout West Africa and stuff like that. The only reason I say that because they like to shit on Africa. Like Africa didn't have nothing. Africa didn't have this. Africa didn't have that. But you have this mathematical cosmology based on doubling up, multiplication, and coding that they don't even know about or talk about. And then you bring it up, they're like, oh no, that came from the American Indian or whatnot, because a lot of folks like
African history, they don't know Native American history. This is all right, okay. So this is when reality sets in. They don't know African history. They don't know Native American history. Somewhere in between that, they have to extract things to try to create a history. What they are in the middle of doing, ladies and gentlemen, is that they are forging some type of history. This is why you see some of the talking points are all the same when they deal with American history. It's always in the 1800s that we get this point of confusion with them. If you have any conversation, I don't care who it is. It can be the highest ranked abo all the way down to somebody as small as the dude that lives in Memphis, Smoke Signal. It's the same thing. The little people are regurgitating something that they heard on a bigger channel without it being true or anything like that. Like people like Ty Sam, right? It just sounds slick to him because of his experiences in life. Being a gang founder and having to serve time and miss out on all the good, the fruits and labors of what could have been for him. And then he finds something that challenges the government, challenges history, you know what I'm saying? And he don't know how to substantiate that shit anyway because he ain't got the compensity to be able to do that. So he has a doctrine in prison education. He brings that home and then he tries to put that on YouTube because he heard it's the popular thing to do. And then he becomes self-indoctrinated out of ignorance. I had to do that because I seen Ty Sam comment in the chat.
These folks need to study Africa more, man. Like Africa is so understudied.
They don't have the need, brother, because they felt like it's beneath them.
It's this guy named Ron Eglash. I think he works in mathematics and computers on TED Talk. And he started talking about the binary divination systems in West Africa, like when he seen it. He like, yo, this is the stuff we use in computers or whatever, you know? But he went to talk about that, and he talked about like the I Ching, but he's like he's a mathematician. Have you seen that guy?
No, I do not watch that channel. I do not keep up with none of them people. I'm being honest. I don't watch nothing on that channel.
I know some of them pseudo.
Hey, bro, the last time I watched that channel, the Amara Squad was the Amara Squad, and they were on the panel. After that, I ain't watched nothing else. I couldn't tell you what's on it. It's been years.
Hold on, the Amara Squad were on the panel at TED Talk?
No, not TED Talk. Oh shit, I thought you were talking about the other pseudo channel. No,
TED Talk. TED Talk.
I catch some episodes of TED Talk. I'm tripping. I'm thinking you was talking about the pseudo channel.
No, I'm about to let me type this guy. I'm listening to. I'm just typing this guy his exact name.
Okay. But yeah, put just all you got to do, bro, is in the private chat. Just put the show you're referring to in the chat, and I can put it in the chat for people who are interested in that one. Because I thought you were talking about that other channel. I was about to know.
Do I?
None of it.
So would I just copy and paste it and put it in the chat?
In the private.
Yeah, just copy and paste it and put it in the private chat. We call it, or the back chat, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have time for it. When I start to hear something that sounds like bullshit, I just kind of like I cringe up, man. I can't listen to most of this shit, bro. When people start talking, when they start making up shit, freestyling shit, especially the ones when, like I told you about that kid, that dude Wisdom Show. He was in the chat room the other day on no, not a coincidence, and he was over there trying to co-sign that a lot of these West Africans that you see today are, Aboriginal. And so they're trying to claim that they're working towards saying that all of the quote unquote sub-Saharan Africans are Aboriginal, Black Americans. That's basically what they're trying to say. That's what they're working towards. It's really disturbing, but and there's a lot of people who are believing in it. If you I go in the comment section, I'll watch videos about Africa day-to-day activities, reports that are going on with the in Ghana or in Sierra Leone or Liberia. And in the chat room, you'll see some folks saying, you know what, Black Americans. It'll be a Black American, discussing what they're doing over in West Africa because some of them have relocated over there, and they're like, we're really the indigenous people of America. I don't know. So what the fuck does this have to do with the African news? And you're making it up anyway. Where did you get? They get it off TikTok. These people watch TikTok and they believe it. It just, to them, it sounds good because once again, most of us don't really know history or even are interested in learning. You have to have a starting point, but you can't. Just because you see something, and I always try to tell this to people, just because you see something on a video doesn't make it true. You have to find out where they got that information. If they're not providing you with the source, you should question anything anyway, but you should really question it, especially not giving you a source, something that you can actually research to try to verify if it's true or if it's not true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got that. So real quick, Akili, yeah, we know about that, but also Akili, if you go to you can look up the state of Georgia, right? So there's a lot of shotgun style houses in Georgia. Well, there's a story about a man that didn't want to build his house like everybody else is on the block. And he says he wanted to build his house to and resemble it like it was back in Africa. So at the end of the block where all these shotgun houses was one house that was different from all the other ones. That house was an actual hut. This shit's documented in Georgia history, bro, of archaeology and all of that. He literally built a hut. And they tell that story and they provide that evidence for that stuff, man. Craziness. But real quick, Oluwaseyi says the issue is many are using their personal opinions, which is true, to rewrite history, which is true. They're simply filling in blanks, which ain't blanks, which is true. They just haven't done the knowledge to cohesively pull together. That's a fact. Olu, on your Facebook post, maybe last week, could have been a week before last, you had asked about the oldest evidence of people existing in the Americas. Well, the oldest fossil record is 23,000 years. We have that. The oldest hominid, we don't have that. You're going to get the oldest hominids found around 10,600 plus years. And then if they want to call Lucia or Naya something, right? Then you're only going to get between 10 and 13,000 years ago. As far as 30,000, we have some archaeological evidence of a boat in South America, but we don't have sites where they have dug up hominids or humans and found them here much earlier than 23 to 30,000, or you can stretch 3,000 plus or minus years. They don't have evidence for people prior to that. It's non-existing. And so I saw that there was a sister that was on there that said something about 50,000 years. And what she was referring to was a La Brea woman. The La Brea woman, in a pseudo source, which is what she used, said something about 50,000 years. But if you look up the La Brea woman today, it's going to put her at 10,000 years, a more accurate date. So I just wanted to, mention that because I couldn't comment on your chat. It was just a screenshot that was showed to me, and I went on your thing, but it wasn't open. We ain't friends on Facebook, so I couldn't.
Hey, John, I want to ask you a question real quick.
Hold on.
The two books that you were referring to.
Hold on. No, go ahead. I can deal with this.
Yeah, I was just saying, the two books that you were referring to. Can you post those titles? I would like to go grab both of those.
Which the Bia book?
Yes.
After God, you ain't gonna find the PDF. You might though. It's old.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the. I'll get the actual book.
After God is the beer, bro. It's gonna cost you a couple $100.
Okay.
Hey, it's worth
No
it.
problem.
I just put that Ron Eglash in the share screen too. I tried to put it in the back chat, but I had to put it in the share
Hold
screen.
on 1 second for me. I see you sharing. And the other one is Flash of the Spirit. You'll find a Flash of the Spirit a lot easier. I put both of them in the private chat for you, Callie. Ken pulled this up on the screen to give it to us. So I'm gonna try to pull it and drop the YouTube. Ron Eglash, right?
Yeah, Ron Eglash.
And what's the title?
It's the math of the he was talking about African. He was talking about fractals, but he was talking about the binary coding system that they use.
No, that's fine. But the title is African Fractals, right?
Well, the African fractals is another. As he started describing the village, this particular one was about the binary coding system. Right here,
Math of African Mystics. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to find a shorter video, but
yeah, they go back a while, 15 years. The math of African what?
The math of African mystics, Ron Eglash.
Okay, I'll find a video. All right, this is like 8 years old. Yeah. So I get this to people to put in the chat because you referred it. I haven't watched it, so I'm not gonna comment.
Yeah, just tell me what your thought is on it when you get a chance and you watch it and stuff like that, man.
All right, so let me get some off the screen real quick. So I'm gonna skip over the stupid comment about Khufu. They were slaves, not knowing that they were native people here, slaves 100 years before we got here. Akili, the one in Louisiana. Okay, they're having a personal. Another question. All right, Ken, you ain't got to share now. It says, if Native Americans were offshoots of Black Africans, wouldn't they have had a history of iron smelting earlier in the Americas instead of stone weapons? Yes. They would have, man, listen, this is even easier. Yes to your question, but they would have been able to survive the the old world diseases. They would have been familiar with how to treat and resolve those old world diseases. More specifically, especially with smallpox.
They were scared with the corona, man. The corona reaching those uncontacted tribes down there.
Yeah.
With that, they were scared about that because it was a new thing, of course.
Okay. So tell me you heard Congo Jack, especially if you're a Gullah. Yeah, you know that.
Yo, it's crazy, man. I was showing the Aboriginal something. I say, in Latin America and even in African American spiritualism, right? With I forgot the sister name, and she talked about Black Hawk. She honored Black Hawk as a spirit or whatever. She never made Black Hawk look like an Aboriginal. She always made him look like a Plains Indian. The same if you go to Cuba or South America. They have a statue on their spiritualism table, right, for the African court, which is a Congo man or former enslaved Congo. And they have a Native American spirit. And the Native American spirit looks like every Native American part of the statue, made like every Native American today. Like, clearly, if they're Aboriginal, they would have had the Black statue for the Aboriginal. Like, they clearly would have had it.
They don't have anything, man. Like I said. Okay, so let's say this, right? Let's just say this. Let's go back to rice cultivating real quick. Let me see if I can make this point. So if they were already familiar, if they've been here, right, then wouldn't they be able to grow crops? Wouldn't they be able to deal with the rice? Wouldn't they be able to deal with all of these other things if they already been here? Set aside dealing with disease. They're dead at diseases. They're dead. They're dead in the water over the, smallpox, malaria, all of that. Because we don't even find malaria in any of their written literature in the 1500s.
Oh, wow.
The Jesuits don't even find that, right? And the Aztecs and the Mayans and all of the motherfuckers, they were writing, bro. They were looking for the words. That's why I did the. Okay, let me show you something real quick. Hold up before my laptop dies. All right, so let me show you something. This was the reason why I did this presentation. Let me just pull this up since it's YouTube already. And let me go on to Mossy. I want to show y'all something. So this is the reason why I did this. I'm not going to play it, but if you're interested in it, you can watch it. But this is why I went and did the white man's grave and the use of quinine or QAnon, right? However you want to pronounce it, right? Because this is what helped them colonize Africa. This is found in the New World by Jesuits watching these natives in the New World use it to treat hemorrhaging, shivering, and so forth. They didn't know exactly what it was, and they extracted it from a bark, right? They extracted it from a bark. So here's the bark. I want to show y'all. Little stuff like this. They get it, and they begin to make the QAnon. So I ain't messing nobody up with it. I'm showing you the real. And it was used to treat it. They got it all the way down to a liquid form, and it was used to treat shivering and so forth. But they had a breakthrough by trying some shit in regards to treating other things that they had taken place over there. And they called this the Jesuit juice or some shit like that. And so when somebody gets malaria or whatever, they just take a risk, bro. They use the QAnon on that person, and it helped. So what they started doing, right? Now they didn't have any justifications all the way because there still was some science that was unanswered behind this shit, but this was new. So they started drinking this shit before they went into Africa. There's a quote by Leopold or somebody like that, like saying that they needed to get involved in Africa during the scramble. And he makes mention of, because he said it's much safer to enter Africa now since we have that juice. Talking about the QAnon. And that helped the scramble for Africa. They helped them get in there. So what I'm trying to say is this. These people that claim to be indigenous and aboriginal to this particular land, you motherfuckers ain't got a remedy to save shit. Not a one. But yo, if you're interested in that, check that shit out, bro.
So QAnon is used to treat malaria, but it was founded over here. And
well, they use it as in an instance to treat malaria.
Okay.
Yeah. So you see it right here. And then they told people how to break it down. They get it from this bark right here. You know what I mean? They condition and break it down till you get this. Then you liquidize it. As you can see, the Jesuits right here. I'm mentioning all the shit that I just said. I'm mentioning all of that shit right there, bro. Yep. And this is what helped them. Colonize Africa. Without this,
this comes from South America. This bark, bark.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'm telling you, they don't deal with Africa because this is maps. So now you go back to the maps to justify it. So the map making has a history, and in the history of the map making, this shows you that they didn't have any intel of the interior of Africa. It wasn't until they possessed the QAnon that allowed them to do that. And then I give you some sources and shit.
Right. So this is until like Stanley and Livingston, right? They start getting all that intel in Central Africa.
There you go.
Because I was wondering, I'm like, damn, they got into Central Africa, ladies. I mean, you had
No, think about it. Late. Just tell the truth. Late. Because they couldn't survive it. That's why they called the shit the white man's grave, man.
Mm-hmm.
The motherfuckers wasn't developing no immunity. Listen to this. Specifically, y'all. Specifically, the white man that touched that went into Africa, went into West Africa and came into contact with West Africans, West and Central Africans, got sick and was dying. There was a limit to where they could go. If they went into that bush, they didn't make it. If they go up that river too much near the bush, they didn't make it. They would get sick. They would get sick. Once they got sick, it was a wrap.
It was over.
They could not survive it, bro. They wasn't gaining no immunity. They wasn't gaining no immunity till later on down the road, and then you had the quinine shit to help them. That was later on. So therefore, that answers your question on how they got to the center so late. They didn't have the balls or the science to get them to the interior. That's why the exchanges was the Africans was bringing them motherfuckers.
Yeah, bringing folks from the central.
They had a time limit. They had a distance limit, and they had a time limit on how long they could be around some shit, because you could bring that shit back.
And then they was on those outer islands in Sao Tome, Cape Verde.
They were scared of the real deal, you know.
They're like, shit, we're gonna hang out here. We're gonna post up in Sao Tome and Cape Verde. We ain't gonna be in the mainland like that, right? You had your coastal forts, but they had to get in and out of there. You know what I'm saying? And I was always wondering, I'm like, shit, all the gold and all these resources in Africa, and usually like white folks, they came to America and settled in this motherfucker, but they couldn't settle like that in Africa, except South Africa. They couldn't just post up in North Africa because you got the Berbers up there, you know, whooping their ass or whatever. South Africa was like in Namibia. But Namibia, look at Namibia, it's desert, you know? It's desert and coastal area. So it's not a bunch of tropics over there. And in South Africa, the climate is a little bit cooler or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But even in South Africa, the white folks, they there. It's something they got farms in the you know, more in the interior or whatever, but not like how they're on the coast. On the coast, most of the white folks seem like they're on the coast in South Africa.
Island Baby. I don't know who that person is unless you're talking about Never Hungry Again. Because this would be an asinine claim. That would be crazy. That would be all the way crazy. So let me try to find something for y'all.
Now they say white folks brought syphilis back to Europe. From
yeah, it did. If you're watching the video that I put in there, there's some things. All right, so there's two things, right? There's old world diseases, and then the old world diseases meet the new world diseases. So now syphilis isn't something that was a new world thing, because there's some history behind that kind of gets into a different perspective. But let's just go ahead and say it. There's the new world diseases marry the old world diseases. This is an epicenter for an explosion. I'm telling you, this is an epicenter for an explosion, because you have white people and Africans who never encountered these new world diseases, and you have these, you know what I mean? You have these new world diseases that aren't as violent as these old world diseases. But it was a very small, you know, a lot of these new world diseases were things that you could treat and move on from, because, you know, they had the remedies for that shit. We ain't in Africa. You know what I'm saying? It took Indians entire process and losing a lot of people in order for them to start gaining some type of protection against smallpox.
Mm-hmm. Do we? And that came and white folks, man, and white folks out devastated folks, man. Smallpox, the common cold. Was it the common cold or that came late? Because we got the Spanish flu.
Common cold, common, but the flu is the flu.
Yeah.
You're referring to the flu.
The influenza.
Yeah, but man, I'm gonna go ahead and end this, man. Make sure y'all tap in tonight at Not a Coincidences show. He's gonna be live and deal with it how we need to deal with it. And you know, I'll probably hop on and catch y'all later, man. But I need to go do some work, bro. So I appreciate everybody tapping in. Make sure you like the show, share the show, tell a friend, and make sure y'all are subscribed and tap into Not a Coincidences channel and run the numbers up, man. Make sure y'all share this show. I wanted to just kind of knock dude out the box. Apparently, he don't even know his own damn history in South Carolina.
Oh, Darvis, the Moorish Aboriginal dude.
Yeah,
you don't need no Moorish history. You don't need no Moorish history. He just claiming shit.
Yeah, he just claiming, bro. So that's it. We catch y'all later, man. Peace.